we entered the weekend up 9 points. We had a chance, at least temporarily, to go up 12 with us playing on Saturday, City playing on Sunday. Instead, we lose the game, so the margin remains 9. City beats Chelsea, freaking useless Chelsea. They have a game in hand, that Crystal Palace game they haven't played because it got rescheduled with the Carabao Cup final. And then, of course, obviously, we go there next week. They beat Crystal Palace. They beat us on Sunday, and now we're level. And, at that point, do you really feel good about us going down the stretch? I still am not convinced City will win every game down the stretch. I just don't think this isn't that team. But the larger concern would be whether or not we have to make them need to do that, right?
Right.
And right now, we can't say that we're doing that right now. And that's kind of where I am. I don't know. So obviously, as we talked about the last couple of seasons, this is the first one, I think, that not only did we have these expectations coming in, but also given the performance up to this point, the expectations have kind of grown. How are you feeling at this point as we head towards this? We head through this rough patch in a critical moment.
I'm tense about it. It's, I remain cautiously optimistic. It feels like overall things have gone better for us and not worse. The injuries remain a really big area of concern. Like, to know that you can't play your best players and that many of them, that's not great. Like, it would be nice to have a lot of these guys we've been seeing every week to be able to bring them in fresh as subs sometimes instead of having them start and go 90 more often than not. But we're down to only the 2 competitions, which hopefully helps on all fronts. I mean, as far as players getting tired and the injured ones being able to recover and then play. I mean, hopefully they get to rest a little bit more when they start having like a week, or I guess, never mind. With the League Cup being down to the semis now, they're not going to really get a break from that, are they?
Yeah, the FA Cup we're going to get, but even with the semis, what that means is City is going to have City, because they're playing in it, will have another game rescheduled. I forget who it's supposed to be. And then they would also get another one rescheduled if they made the final. The final is the weekend before the end of the Premier League season. So, but they are also out of Europe, so they're going to have some midweek spots. They have some midweek spots available,
right,
to sort of shuffle some things around. Whereas we, of course, have Europe. I mean, I know we're obviously very down after this performance. I still feel we're in pretty good shape to go through. Sporting. So we're talking about 2 more games there with the semifinal.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I would overall say I'm cautiously optimistic, and maybe more cautious than I would have been a few weeks ago. Tempering that optimism a little bit, but I still think we have it in us, and I really want to see it all work out on hopefully both the European and domestic fronts. But
yeah, I mean, obviously we take one of them. Obviously, I'm not going to get into at this point which one I'd want more or will need more, any of that. But I will say, obviously, I think this all looks very different in a week's time if we go up to the Etihad and get a result. I think if we walk out of there with a point, I think this changes the conversation entirely. I would sit here and say, I mean, I think most people would tell you right now a City victory feels most likely. But bear in mind how many of us thought that an Arsenal victory in the Carabao Cup was the most likely. I mean, look at the way City came into that game. They had dropped points in their 2 previous Premier League games. They had gotten pretty comprehensively knocked out of the Champions League. Like, they were kind of, they weren't sliding, but they were definitely not in good shape. And then they turned in an excellent performance and have kind of gone off to the races from there. So, the moral of the story, of course, is that our predictions mean nothing. But... I don't know. Again, we could go back a couple weeks, and or even coming into this weekend, the Athletic surveyed a bunch of their writers. Will Arsenal win the league? And they were all kind of like, yeah, probably. They did the same thing this morning, and they're like, well, I think City will win it now. Go back 2 weeks ago, oh, Arsenal win the league. 2 weeks before that, oh, City will win the league. This is kind of flown back and forth on this a lot over the last couple of months, and so. If you're looking for a reason to feel at least somewhat optimistic, like, we've seen these kinds of ebbs and flows for people before. It feels weird to us this season because, I mean, before the loss to City, we had lost 3 games total in all competitions. Now we've lost 3 of our last 4, which doesn't feel particularly good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I get the frustration. I get the anxiety. I'm feeling it too. Obviously, if this ends up with us finishing in second, if this ends up with us not winning anything, I've had darker moments as a sports fan, but this would be pretty. This would be pretty bad. I think there's which is only going to add to the pressure, right?
I don't know if it's making me feel better or worse that I'm like rereading Fever Pitch right now. I think Nick Hornby's perspective, I think, tends to make me feel optimistic because he's just so down on everything. But it's like I'm starting to hear his voice in the back of my head, like, well, they're going to mess it up because that's like what they do.
Yeah. I will say
know.
this. That's kind of how every fan sort of perceives it. Oh, that only happens to us. I was like, well, actually, it happens to every team. This is kind of like, you'd be amazed the number of times teams will go through these kind of stretches, and then in 2 months when the season's over, and who knows, maybe we're at everybody's at a parade, and just kind of forget these things happen. You don't know. I mean, or it could be the beginning of a spiral that sees us, kind of fall apart. I don't think we're gonna like collapse and suddenly finish. I do believe we've officially clinched a spot in the Champions League for next year. England has clinched 5 spots.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure we're guaranteed to finish top 5. So we will play Champions League next year.
What event caused us to get the 5th spot? Was it just the way that we've done across all 3 of the European competitions?
Right. It's basically English teams advancing. You've got obviously Arsenal and Liverpool in the Champions League, Crystal Palace in the Conference League, and Aston Villa in the Europa League. So England's got 4 teams making their way through all 3 competitions, plus just the record they also, I mean, again, we had 6 teams make the knockout round of the Champions League. Like, that's a lot of points to the coefficient. Yeah. So the top 5 are guaranteed Champions League spots for next year. And I'm pretty sure I looked at the standings. I'm pretty sure we've clinched a top 5 spot officially.
Right. So should we seal the deal with Sporting next week? How are things looking across the rest of the Champions League? Who else is poised to advance to the semis?
Well, I mean, I think it's first of all, the one we want to start with is the Spanish derby there in the in the other quarterfinal, because that's, of course, they're bracketed to face the winner of our leg will bracketed to face the winner of that match. For the first time in 20 years, Atletico Madrid went into Barcelona and won. They beat Barcelona 2-0. A red card against Barcelona. Apparently, they spent a lot of the game camped out in Atleti's end, even with 10 men. So even though this tie moves back to Madrid, and Atletico is up 2 goals, I think it's far from over. But it does kind of darkly amuse me that, again, so much of the noise that happens around is just nonsense by people who just are, hot takes and things like that. But given how Barcelona is suddenly the swashbuckling, one of the favorites, and obviously they'll beat Arsenal, it'd be very funny to me if they didn't beat Atletico Madrid. We'll see, of course. Who knows? It is perfectly. It would not shock me at all if our Barcelona came out, ripped them 5-1, and suddenly there they are in the semifinals again. Like, I don't think that's entirely unheard of.
By the way, I was curious what the Spanish term is for derby, and take this with an LLM-sized grain of salt, but ChatGPT says it's just derby, El Derby. Derby. So,
yeah, that's what I would have expected. Quickly on the other side of the bracket, though, Bayern Munich 2-1 winners at the Bernabeu. They beat Real Madrid. A late goal from Real pulled that one back. The sense I got from commentary outside was that Bayern was by far the better team. They're going back to Germany. It is the most played Champions League tie of all time, Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. And Bayern has been a thorn in Real Madrid's side as a top club, which makes sense. They're both obviously, European royalty, so to speak. And then in the other game, the holders, PSG, were home against Liverpool. They won 2-0, and by all accounts, it should have been 5. Just completely tore Liverpool apart. But they do, it's 2 goals, and now they go to Anfield. And on the one hand, Anfield has seen its fair share of magical European nights. Yeah. On the other hand, Liverpool do not look particularly good. Paris Saint-Germain look very good right now. And I would kind of guess At this point, I think the heavy favorites in all the ties are the leaders. I think Arsenal, Atletico, Bayern, and PSG are the favorites. If one of them doesn't make it, my guess would be Atletico because Barcelona can overturn that. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I think, Bayern looks at Real, and is Real as good as they've been in the past? No, but it's the Champions League. They do weird things in the Champions League. Again, Anfield on a European night. All of these ties are still close enough to feel like they might be in the balance, but at the same time, it would not surprise me at all if the first leg winners all go through to the semis.
Right. By the way, just as far as our record against Sporting, this was something that I found amusing. Like, technically, they've never beaten us in spite of knocking us out of the Europa League a few years ago, because that still goes down as a draw. They beat us on penalties. So,
I thought they won that first leg. Was I wrong about that?
Yeah, no, looking at it here. So the first leg was drawn 2-2. The second leg was 1-1. So we have 3 draws. And now I guess the page that I'm looking at doesn't look like it's been updated for the most recent results. So we have now beat them twice. They've never beaten us. So for what that's worth.
I mean, yeah, a draw gets us through,
Yeah, exactly.